All right, so on my quest to see all the national parks, all 63 in the U.S., I got to go to Joshua Tree. Joshua Tree is number 51 for me. It's also the 8th out of 9 national parks in California that I've got to visit. So Joshua Tree is a beautiful national park located in Southern California. While you do have to take a little bit of a drive to get out there, it's not far from LA, San Diego, and other areas in Southern California. Palm Springs is right there outside the park. The interstate, I-10, runs just right outside the park, so it's really easily accessible just right off the interstate if you want to take a quick detour while you're driving through Southern California and check it out. So I was in Southern California shooting a wedding with my buddy Jeff, and while I was out there, I had 3 parks in California that I had not seen yet: Death Valley, Joshua Tree, and Channel Islands. I was able to squeeze in Death Valley a little bit before the wedding. I got a video on that's already posted. And then Joshua Tree and Channel Islands, I had planned for extending the trip a few more days so I could visit these 2 parks. So after the wedding, I actually took the couple out to Joshua Tree to do an adventure session on Sunday evening around sunset, just to take advantage of the beautiful scenery we had there in Joshua Tree. And it kind of was rainy for the wedding, so I'm glad that we got the opportunity to go out there to Joshua Tree. It was perfect weather that night. Sunset was beautiful. Got to get some great portraits with the couple out there exploring the park. So I had that evening and the next night. So I had Sunday night and Monday night planned to stay in Joshua Tree. So they gave me all day on Monday to explore the park, a little bit Sunday evening, a little bit Tuesday morning, but for the most part I had one full day. So in planning for this trip, I decided to go ahead and reserve a campsite in Joshua Tree at the Jumbo Rocks Campground. There's tons of different campgrounds in Joshua Tree. Some are reservable before you go, and some are just first come, first serve. From my research, I didn't really find any campgrounds that I specifically wanted to go to or see different things. Just any campground in the park was going to be good. So I chose Jumbo Rocks Campground mostly because it was kind of centrally located in the park, right in the middle. And also, it was a huge campground with tons of different sites and everything like that. So, sight unseen, that was what I chose. And I believe I had site number 31. So I had a great little spot there at the campsite in Jumbo Rocks Campground. So I got up the morning, on Monday morning, super early for sunrise. Went out to some different areas. There's some pretty well-known areas in Joshua Tree that are kind of the iconic places that get really busy during the day. So if you can be out at these places early in the morning, around sunrise or before, and then later in the evening, they're a little bit more busy than sunrise, but they're not quite as busy at sunset. And then the best time that you can go out there and there's virtually no one around is in the middle of the night. The night photography there is great, and I'll get to that in a minute, but Joshua Tree can get pretty crowded. Its proximity to so much of the population in Southern California just lends itself to be a great escape for people to get out there and explore, and plus people from all over the country and all over the world that want to come see the sights of Joshua Tree. So I was there on a Monday, February the 28th of 2025. That was the full day that I had there. And while it wasn't like slammed and I didn't have trouble parking in areas and things like that, there were a lot of people out. It's a great place for people to rock climb. The weather was perfect. People were out hiking, exploring the park. So there was not a huge crowd, but it was pretty busy. So being able to go to the areas that are more popular early in the day or later in the evening, just make it where you have it almost to yourself, or very few people out there. So I could really kind of sum up Joshua Tree National Park in really 2 things: rocks and the Joshua trees. There are other things there. There's cactus and other desert landscape and some historical areas and things like that. But for the most part, it's a ton of rocks, ton of boulders, ton of looks like rock piles a lot of places, tons of rock climbing options, tons of different places to explore in the rocks. And then there's Joshua trees. Obviously, that's why the park's named that, throughout the park. There are some areas that have less dense Joshua tree growth, and there's some areas in the higher elevations that have more dense growth of Joshua trees. But those 2 things are the really 2 main attractions in the park. There's a beautiful scenic drive. You can pull into the town of Joshua Tree or 29 Palms. There's visitor centers on both of those areas, and both of those drives come down into the center of the park. You can drive in from either one of those. It's a really easy place that you could drive through in a few hours. I don't recommend it because you wouldn't be able to see everything in just a few hours, but if you only have a few hours and you're coming down across the interstate and you want to see the park, It's a really easy park to do that. There's not many national parks that are right off the interstate. I-10 just runs south of the park, and the Cottonwood area is how you can get in from right off of I-10, and you drive up the mountain into the higher elevation of Joshua Tree. There's some other areas you can enter from also, but they don't have access to the paved road system that goes through the main part of the park. You may have to drive on dirt roads to get there through some of the other entrances, or some of the other entrances are just like campgrounds and things there right outside of Joshua Tree or 29 Palms that you can get to, but it's just down into it and then come back out. So the main area driving through the park, the main paved area, is from the town of Joshua Tree, town of 29 Palms. Those roads come together in the middle of the park and then go down to Cottonwood. There's really tons of cool things to see in Joshua Tree, and so many of the things that you want to see are rock formations, and the rock formations have been named after items or objects that the rocks look like. So there's Skull Rock, and there's Arch Rock, and there's Face Rock, and there's Heart Rock, and there's Split Rock, and there's Cow Rock, and all these other things, the different formations that are named after different things. And all those spots are really cool places to kind of explore and see. Many of the trails in Joshua Tree and many of the kind of iconic things that you want to see while you're there are really not that far from the road. So the park is decent size. It's not the biggest park. It's a pretty good sized park, but most of the things that I went to see were right off the road. I mean, within a mile. So a trail like to Arch Rock was like a mile round trip. Face Rock is just a little ways off the road. Skull Rock is literally on the road. Like you pull off on the parking area and go to it. It's right there. Like there's some places that are right there in the parking area of the trailhead and the picnic area, like Split Rock. In the middle of the day, I did go out to Arch Rock. I wanted to kind of scope it out and plan for the evening to get astrophotography, to get the Milky Way hopefully rising over Arch Rock if the direction lined up correctly. So I went out there in the middle of the day and used my app that I used to track the stars with, Photo Pills, and I pulled it up to see how the Milky Way is going to rise and at what direction and all that kind of stuff and what time. Going to Arch Rock, I wanted to pre-plan my night activities to go out and get the stars, and Arch Rock is right next to White Tanks Campground. So, I mean, literally it's like 100 yards out from where I camped at the campground. The thing about White Tanks is it's only first come, first serve. So I got there around noon. Checkout was around noon. I got there like right at the time the checkout was. I actually found a campsite that no one had stayed in that night. So I set up my tent to mark my spot and then left to go to the entrance station to pay the fee for the campsite for the night. I wanted to make sure that I stayed at White Tanks because I didn't want to have to drive anywhere to go out to Arch Rock at night. I could just get out from my campsite, walk up there, spend a few hours, and come back. I've got the map here, and so it might be hard to see here, but the area is really not that large. I did explore some of the different areas. I went down to the Cholla Cactus Garden, which was actually closed at the time that I was there. The parking area was closed for rehabilitation of the area, but you could pull off the side of the road and see some of the cactus and things like that. The trail was actually closed, but you drive right through the middle of the cactus field. Some other spots that I would recommend checking out while you're there would be the Quail Springs area. You've got the Hemingway area. Hidden Valley is right off the road. The Barker Dam, you just have to take a little side road out to it. It's about a mile and a half loop by an old historical dam that was built for cattle grazing that was out there. So once you leave the Barker Dam area, you walk out to an area where there's some Native American carvings on some rocks there, and then it takes you through a pretty thick growth of Joshua trees. So that area was actually more densely populated with Joshua trees than some of the other areas that I went in the park. So while the park is not that big, and you are near different towns and cities to get supplies, to grab gas, to get food and all that kind of stuff, it's a great option to stay in the park. There are 9 campgrounds inside the park. And Jumbo Rocks, the one that I stayed at the first night, is huge. I don't know how many sites it has, but it's well over 100. White Tanks didn't have that many. It was maybe 20 or so, but there are some massive campgrounds inside the park. And there were people there in tents. There were people there in campers and RVs and pull-behind trailers and drivers and vans and everything. So all the different types of camping equipment that you have. I think camping in the park is a great option. I would love it if I'd had my van or my camper there or something like that. But tent camping was great. The weather was perfect. And the time that I was there in late April, the night temperatures were in the 50s and the daytime temperatures were in the 70s, 80s. I don't think it hit 90. The sun was warm. In the middle of the day when you're out in the desert, the sun gets warm. If you're in the shade, it's pretty comfortable. The sun does get pretty hot. So make sure that you have plenty of water and stuff when you're out there hiking around. So one thing I love doing is going out and capturing the stars. And in Death Valley, I was out there in the great dark skies, but it was cloudy. There was too many clouds for me to capture anything the night that I was out there. So I was hoping in Joshua Tree that I would be able to capture something. So the first night I got to the campsite on Sunday, I didn't have a lot of time to set it up. It was already dark when I got there, and I was pretty tired. I'd been going full steam for like a week, and I really just wanted to be able to set my camera up and leave it out overnight. So I set it up to get the Milky Way, hopefully, as I tracked it with photo pills coming up over the Joshua Tree there in my campsite. It turned out great. So since I'd already pre-planned my timing to go out to Arch Rock at night, I was able to go to the campsite, get some sleep, and get up about 11:30 or 12 to be out at Arch Rock for the Milky Way coming up over the rock. I was able to get a little bit of a time lapse out there, but there was a lot of activity, so didn't get quite as much as I'd hoped. But it was still a beautiful spot to get some great photos of this Milky Way coming up over the arch. So sometimes people ask me about capturing these night photos. There are definitely some key factors in getting good star photography. Now, there is a whole deep dive that you can go into about how to with trackers and really expensive equipment. But with basic camera gear, you can actually get some decent stuff. The thing that you need to know is the camera matters, the lens matters, and you have to have a dark sky on a dark night with no moon, and you really need, you've got to have a tripod. You've got to have some way to stabilize your camera. So the best thing to do is get the fastest lens you have, the lowest aperture lens you've got. Wide is great. Your shutter speed needs to be pretty slow, so you need a tripod. Put your camera on the tripod and set your shutter speed to usually 10 seconds is a good guess. Start there and then see what you need to do from there. Point it up in the sky. Your autofocus is probably not going to work. You're going to need to manually focus it, and you need it to stay in manual focus. Once you get your focus set, leave it in manual focus so it's not hunting for focus every time you take a new photo. Another thing to do is get it on a good solid tripod, and when you go to take the photo, put it in like a 2-second timer so when you depress the shutter, you're not shaking the camera. So you want to depress the shutter and then step back and let the camera take the photo. And then once it's done, touch the camera to review the image. This is a very basic setup of what you need to do, but those few things, tripod, camera on the tripod, wide lens, manual focus, low ISO, 10-second shutter, and then go from there. That will give you the ability to capture some stars. Most people don't take the opportunity to go out at night and see these areas in the dark and see them under the bright stars. So many people live in cities and they don't ever see the stars. And so take the opportunity when you go to places that have dark skies like Joshua Tree, like Death Valley. So next time you're out in the national parks or in the national forest area, turn the lights out, get outside, and take a few minutes to see all the beautiful stars that are right above our heads that we so often miss. So after you've checked out all the rock formations and other areas in the park, one of the things that I would definitely recommend doing, and I would really recommend doing it later in the evening close to sunset, is drive up to Keys View. It's about a 5.5 mile drive up from the main park road, and you're driving up to a lot higher elevation. The elevation is 5185 feet up at Keys View, and you're much higher than the elevation of the Joshua Tree area down behind you. So you're looking over this huge valley, and that's also where the San Andreas Fault runs through. So you're up on top of the mountain, up at Keys View, and you can look in both directions. You can see Joshua Tree down behind you, but then you can look ahead of you and see the San Andreas Fault and the Coachella Valley, which is way farther down. You can see it feels like forever. The sunset there was gorgeous. I would say go up to Keys View for sunset and take in sunset there. You might need to get up there a little bit early because the parking does get kind of packed around sunset. So it's a great spot. It's definitely worth the drive, and don't miss Keys View while you're at Joshua Tree. I've got Joshua Tree checked off, and I'm not just doing the parks to check them off. Like, there is a checklist in my head that I want to complete them all, but it's not just for the sheer fact of completing them, just to drive through and check off the fact that I've been there. But I really do love exploring the wilderness and exploring natural areas and seeing the unique places that the parks protect. There's so much beauty in these different places, and they're all so unique. So while I am going to check them off and do all the parks, ultimately all 63, I do want to take some time in each park and actually see the things that are in the park. And so I really feel like I saw a lot of the things that Joshua Tree has to offer. So I'm trying to be intentional now and document my journey through the remaining national parks that I have left. And so be sure to subscribe, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I'll continue sharing information about the national parks. And hopefully this will give you some information, so as you plan your visit, you can get some ideas on things to do and what to see while you're there. So when I left Joshua Tree, I was headed to my final California National Park and number 52 on my list, which is Channel Islands. So I made my way to Ventura, California to get on the ferry to sail out to Channel Islands National Park at Santa Cruz Island.